Now let's take a look at some incredible numbers. This past year, India's defense production crossed 1 lakh crore rupees for the first time. You heard that number a few minutes ago also. Defense exports in particular, as we speak, are at an all-time high. Now, as we've discussed today, this was reached largely by, by a mixture of exports. So technologically advanced and conventional weapon systems to South, East Asian and African countries. But the big question we're going to take a look at next. What do the next milestones in our Make in India dream look like? To help us understand this, we're going to request Rear Admiral R.K. Shrawat, AVSM, the Chairman and the Managing Director of the Naval Group India Private Limited, to join us.
Now we have with us Rear Admiral R.K. Shrawat. Rear Admiral R.K. Shrawat is the Chairman of the Naval Group India. He was also the Chairman and Managing Director of Mazagon Dock Shipbuilders Limited and has been awarded for his distinguished service with the Ati Vishisht Seva Medal. Moderating this session is Professor Harshvi Pant. He is the Vice President, Studies and Foreign Policy at the Observer Research Foundation. He is an expert on Asia-Pacific security issues and has authored several books.
Thank you once again, and thank you, Rear Admiral Shrawat, for joining us for this conversation.
Pleasure.
You have had a very, interesting, again, vantage point to look at this, both here in terms of the professional life and now working in the private sector. But I would like to start. We have discussed a lot about Make in India, self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. And we have seen that Indian Navy has been, of all the three services, actually had been doing this very successfully for a very long time. And therefore, certainly, I think that experience needs to be shared with this audience as to how did it manage to achieve something that others were struggling with.
Thank you. I think it's a very good question to start with. Navy, amongst the three services, has been at the forefront of self-reliance through indigenization, which we call Atmanirbhar today. And I would give credit to this for the visionary leadership of the Navy of our founding fathers immediately after independence. And they knew that if we have to grow big and we have to grow strong, which you know today, we have to make things on our own, the platforms. And the first thing they did was that at that time, the private shipyards which were existing, namely Mazagon Dock and Garden Reach at Calcutta, they were taken in the fold of Ministry of Defense. So that's how they became the defense public sector unit, defense shipyards. And that is where the Navy started building ships in these two shipyards. And the first ship which we made indigenously, the big one, was called the Leander Frigate Program. It was made in collaboration through TOT with then UK, the Royal Navy, because we are more familiar with the Royal Navy. And the Leander program started in Mazagon Dock. And 6 Leander-class ships were made at MDL indigenously. And they were steam ships, so like we learned steam technology, how to make boilers and things like that. Simultaneously, one more thing I'll say that Navy set up its own ship design directorate and started with a small project. We made some seaward defense boats, which are very small, but they were designed indigenously. They were made indigenously in Kolkata. That organization, which was called Directorate of Naval Design, where I also served for some time, today, last year, I think the President commissioned it as a Warship Design Bureau. It's a Warship Design Bureau, and I'm very happy to share that almost 19 designs of warships have been made by this design bureau, and through this design, more than 100 warships have been made in India for the Indian Navy mainly. So this has been a kind of success, I would say, and this has happened because Navy has invested in the shipyards. Navy spares officers to go into this shipyard on permanent absorption, because then they have to say thank you like I did. So, and therefore, and because the designers of the Navy, there's complete ownership of the product. This experiment and this model of the Navy has been more successful, and this is now, I would say, late, been adopted by the Army. Today, Army Chief spoke about the Army Design Bureau, which is the interface between the industry and Army. The then Vice Chief, who was my NDC course mate, I shared with him my experience, and that's how, during his tenure, the Army Design Bureau was set up. So they are now starting in a small way. But Navy's story is this. So I think this is what, in a nutshell, I would say, this has been a success story why Navy has been so successful.
Yes, and one is glad to hear that best practices are being shared in this way. So, of course, you have talked of warships. I think it would be very useful to also know what is happening in the realm of underwater capabilities in this regard.
True. So you see, Navy has done, I think, quite well, even in the area of submarines. But in broad categories, if we say there is something called a strategic submarine, which are the nuclear-powered and nuclear weapon side, which is not my domain to right now talk about, although I have worked in that project. India has done well in that area. And I will speak more about the conventional submarines, which is in the open domain and which have been constructed by Mazagon Dock at Mumbai. Now, what happened, Navy also took a lead in having a submarine arm. But in the beginning, we were not ready, or we did not have the industrial base to make submarines in India. So we bought out from Russia. Many submarines were bought. Our submarine arm is actually, at that time, was created through Russian collaboration, Russian help. Okay. But later on, in the 80s, in 90s, government sanctioned that let us make submarines in India, and that was done in collaboration with Germany. I think we have heard of the HDW, SSK submarines. 4 were procured at that point in time. And I mean, the aim was to build more thereafter, but for various reasons, it did not happen. In that project, which was with HDW, which now today is called TKMS, 2 were built in Germany, and later 2 were built in Mazagon Dock locally. Okay, so only 4 were built. It was quite, I mean, a good program, but for various controversies, it could not be carried forward. So there was lull actually thereafter, and gap of almost, I would say, the last submarine HDW was commissioned in 1994. Okay, I think if I remember correctly, and we signed thereafter contract for the Scorpene Submarines in 2005 December. So you see, there was a gap of almost 20 years when nothing happened. Okay, this was a sad thing to happen, which was not, I think, in anyone's control as such, but circumstances as such. So we lost a lot of skills, because skill in submarine area is very complex. And after 20 years, the government of India signed a contract with France. At that time, the company was called DCNS, today which is called Naval Group. And 6 submarines were to be built in collaboration with France. Now, if I tell you that amongst all platforms in the defense or in the world, I would say, what is the most complex platform to be made? You would say perhaps a fighter aircraft, but no. Submarine is the most complex platform to be made. And if I have a graph, a degree of difficulty, if you see, if a tank is a degree of difficulty 10, a fighter aircraft is 40. Ships sit at 60, and submarines are at 80, complexity-wise. So it's the most complex platform to be made. And therefore, when we lost all these skills, etc., for 20 years, it was a sad story. But anyway, so we again started the program, and government sanctioned this thing, 6 to be built under that program. Now, there are 2 uniqueness of that program, which you will be happy to know. It has not happened anywhere in the world when you are making, in collaboration, certain platforms, that the first one is built in the recipient country. Like I give example of German submarine. 2 were built there, then 2 were built in India. But in this program, we were very ambitious, and France supported our ambition to say the first one itself will be built in India only. Okay. So that's how this thing. So it took time because we lost, but finally we made. We have now made 5 submarines, and the help of France in the TOT in making this platform was only for the first 2 submarines, Calvary and Kara, these 2. Thereafter, Frenchies are not helping in TOT or for construction of the submarine. It is entirely now Mazagon Dock is self-reliant to build submarines on their own. So 3rd, 4th, 5th have all been made only by Mazagon Dock. 6th one will be commissioned soon this year sometime. So this has been a very success story. The other unique part of this was that France also set up a subsidiary in India to enable indigenization to Atmanirbhar. This happened in 2008, more than 15 years back. Although now it was a pre-offset era contract, so there was no offset obligation. But despite that, France decided, Naval Group decided to set up a company in India which can scout around in the industry and supply some equipment for the program. So that has also happened. And today we can say 30% may not look very impressive, but a submarine platform, 30% is a good progress. That these submarines which are now building are 30% indigenous. So this is what I would say, the story so far.
But it's a very interesting story because in some ways we were talking earlier on the earlier panel about trust-based partnerships and how in this particular case France has been more willing than others to enhance India's domestic manufacturing base. And of course you pointed out the skill set that was lost could also be recuperated because of that particular model that we followed. So are you satisfied now that the skills that we lost have been we have gotten back?
So, it has been a kind of a long, not struggle, but wait, I would say. Because when I was completing my tenure as CMD of Mazagon Dock, I knew the pain of losing skills and how difficult it is to revive at that time with great difficulty. First one was commissioned during my time, and so we had a lot of struggle. So since then, I had been pitching that we should not repeat this mistake. We have to continue to make a submarine in Mazagon Dock, where with great difficulty we have revived. So this was going on. I used to write some paper, send something, but nothing more happened. But I feel very satisfied and happy to say that in 2023, July, the government has taken the decision to construct 3 more Scorpene submarines in India at Mazagon Dock, and which is a very, very, I think, a correct decision. It shows the toughness, like Honorable Defense Minister was saying, that they are not in short-term gains. They are looking at long-term gains. And when we say that the government has decided to build 3 more, actually it is the potential is much, much more. See, we have today only 16 submarines commissioned with us, and out of that many are many 30 years old. They are quite old submarines. So we need numbers in quick succession. And as you are yourself an expert in this field, like Indo-Pacific is so important today to us. Okay, we talk about Quad and things like that. How will we show our presence over there if we don't have the numbers with us? We have to have numbers to be sustaining in that area.
So just on that point, Rear Admiral, we know that we don't have the numbers at the moment, and the Indo-Pacific landscape and the global landscape looks very bleak. What kind of platforms would you say we need to invest in, naval platforms at the moment, to allow us the kind of leverage that we want in the Indo-Pacific? What should be the priority areas? Because certainly we can't do everything together.
Yeah, so I think this is a very tough question, and perhaps naval strategists should answer, but I'll attempt, okay. I think if we have a permanent presence in faraway area, I think you need a task force to be sustained over there. So I will only see that you need a task force. We have at this moment 2 aircraft carrier with us, which is not sufficient. So we need something bigger than that. So although Honorable RM talked about budget is a constant. After we are not that rich. We don't have unlimited resources with us. So if you given me my wish list, I would say we should have a carrier, we should have a platform around it to protect it, because carrier has to be protected, and we need sufficient number of underwater platforms. I think this is what I would like the Navy, maybe CNS is the right person to speak about it, but maybe I can say like this what we need.
No. I think private industry should also have a viewpoint there, and a rear admiral at that should also have one. But we were talking earlier about this balance between building domestic manufacturing capability, but also looking at the exports.
Yeah.
So how do you rate the export potential of some of these capabilities that we are developing at home?
Yeah. So I mean, see, this has been discussed today. 2-3 broad points I would like to make after hearing all the panelists and speeches. See, defense export is a part of foreign diplomacy. Okay. That is point number 1. Number 2, industry is not in a position to, it is not an industry topic actually. When I was MD, sometimes my boss will tell me, why don't you go and meet somewhere, export some ships, submarines? It's not possible. Like, because we are recipient of foreign, who sells a submarine, it's the government sells. So it is the government which has to be at the forefront. And I'm happy to see, because this was, when Dr. Kamal said today, it is driven from the top. It is happening today because it is driven from the top. So it is happening. The 3 important stakeholders in this, the Foreign Ministry number 1, I think our Meenakshi Lekhi was here, MOD is second, and third is industry. These 3 segments are to work in conjunction in New Zealand, then only our export will take place. Okay, this is, I think, second, which was not happening earlier, but today it is happening. I think that's how the results are coming. Another point that I would like to make, it is not really difficult to export. Let us not think that do we have the capability. I would like to argue like this. If there is an equipment which is good for Army, Navy, Air Force, of Indian Army, Indian Air Force, it is good enough for most of the countries in the world. Is it not that? So it is good. Certainly good for the countries that we are targeting. It's good for neighboring countries, it's good for African countries, where we are going. So there's no dearth of that what can we export. We can import, whatever we are manufacturing in India for our Indian defense forces is good enough for meeting our targets. We just have to have the will to do it. And I say again, it is a diplomatic will, it is a MOD will, it is an industry will. And it will happen.
And on another aspect which we were discussing earlier on the question of R&D, are you satisfied with the pace at which domestic industry is, particularly in the Navy, Navy sector, is building the R&D potential? I mean, there has been a lot of debate and discussion around this, but unless we strengthen that capability, the long-term potential becomes difficult to ascertain. So, are you satisfied at the moment, or is it something that you would want more to happen?
So, I mean, I will come back to this question if you permit. About export, I want to give another example. See, for example, today we are in a very, I think, advanced stage of discussion with our neighboring countries such as say Bangladesh or even Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries to export to them small platforms like OPVs. Even submarines, in which also I think Naval Group from France is our strategic partner. So they're also helping us that we should win this contract, which is a win-win situation not only for India, it is for our neighbor country, it is good for France. Okay, so a lot of things are happening, and I'm happy that it is happening in this manner. But it is all at the level of the government push which is there and is showing these results. So I give full credit to the present government to do what is to do. See, today there is a lot of vibrancy. People are excited. Industry is happy about it. Something is happening, and I think we have to just build up on this, positivity which is happening today in the country. Having said that, now your question is tough question. Okay. So, see, it is like this. If you look at the glass is half full or half empty, like we can say like this. We have tremendous capabilities which we need to harness correctly, and which is happening now. But there are enough areas where we need to do more, where we do not have the abilities. I can give example, which I think Honorable RM also mentioned, that we need to manufacture our platforms, whether it is ship or it is an aircraft. We need good gas turbines to power the platform. I think something is happening in that direction with Safran, and on one side, and then some Indian partner. I think there is some agreement to develop a gas turbine engine indigenously. Similarly, we need to have a good, I think, high-powered diesel engines we don't have today made in India. So this, like the critical art list, is there. I would say this list is not very large. This is, but it is tough list because nobody would like to part with the technology because it is a big business for everyone. So this is where we have to find some answer in this area. High technology is an area where I think we need to do more. Through startups, we can gain much advantage, but they can't, I feel they can't get us high technology. High technology is a difficult area where I think with DRDO help, etc., with governmental help, governmental support, things should happen in that direction. So much more needs to be done. Much has been done. Path is difficult. It is challenging, but it is doable because our leadership is committed about it.
That's a very optimistic note to end this conversation on, and I think the most important point that you make is that all stakeholders will have to work. And I think in that context, if you're looking at high-end R&D, it also involves our academic and research institutions that need to be partnering much more with the defense industry, both DRDO as well as the private industry. So thank you, sir. I think our time is up, and thank you for joining us this afternoon.
My pleasure. It's been wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Firstpost, for this opportunity.
We're once again going to request you to honor the Rear Admiral.